So, according to my father, when he saw this movie at a local drive-in on the North Shore, there was around 100 cars for the opening sequences. And by the 20-minute mark, 90% of the cars had left. There's no way to say this. This movie had a good concept, but trying to combine hippiness and Ray Bradbury didn't work. So today we're going to be talking about considered one of the biggest science fiction bombs of the 1960s, The Illustrated Man. Now, this dark science fiction drama film was directed by Jack Smite and starred Oscar winner Rod Steiger as a man whose tattoos on his body represent visions of frightening futures. The movie is based on three short stories from the 1951 collection The Illustrated Man by Ray Bradbury, The Veldt, The Long Rain, and The Last Night of the World. Came out in 1969. Now, produced by Ted Mann and Howard B. Knitzik. Claire Bloom was the co-star, very great actress. Cinematography by Philip H. Lathrop. Edited by Archie Marshek. Music by the great Jerry Goldsmith, Warner Brothers 7 Arts. March 26, 69, 108 minutes in the States. Now, set in the back roads of America, the film enacts three of Bradbury's stories in the future, with Steiger as a man named Carl telling tales behind some of the tattoos, which he insists are not to be called tattoos, but only ever skin illustrations, which come to life and tell the illustration story when stared at directly. The story is about virtual reality, the Veldt, a mysterious planet, the Long Rain, and the end of the world, the last night of the world. Carl, accompanied by his dog Peek, tells his tales to Willie, a traveler. The tie-in prologue tells of how Carl came to be tattooed after he encountered a mysterious woman named Felicia, played by Bloom, in a remote farmhouse. The plot comes to a terrifying conclusion when Willie looks at the only blank patch of skin on Carl's body and sees an image of his own murder at Carl's hands. Willie attempts to kill Carl and then flees in the night, pursued by still living Carl, with the audience left undetermined as to Willie's fate. Now, the Veldt, in this one, parents in a futuristic society worry about their children's mental health when their new virtual reality nursery, which can produce any environment that the children can imagine, continually projects an African Veldt populated by lions feasting on carcasses. A child psychologist suggests that the automated house is not good for the children's development and insists they disable the automation and become more self-sufficient. The children are not pleased with this decision, but later coolly agree to it. The children then trap their parents in a nursery where they become prey to the lions. They later have lunch in the Veldt with their child psychologist, who sees the lions feasting. Like the original story, the psychologist realizes what has happened and is horrified. Now, in the Long Rain, a group of astronauts are stranded on Venus, where it rains continuously and heavily. The travelers make their way across the Venusian landscape to find a sun dome, a shelter with a large artificial light source. The first sun dome they find has been destroyed by the native Venusians. Searching for another sun dome, the characters one by one are driven to madness and suicide by the unrelenting rhythm of the rain. Unlike the original story, this is a whole group of astronauts, and a single sane astronaut remains to find a functional sun dome. Now, in the last night of the world, every adult on Earth has had the same vision of the Earth ending that night. A husband tells his wife that the ruling council has decided there's nothing else to do except await the inevitable and to not tell any children of this to spare them. The couple and their children go through their normal routines, knowing and accepting the fact that there is no tomorrow. Unlike the original story, the ruling council decided that all children will be put to death painlessly to spare them the end by being given a poison pill before going to bed. But a couple awaken the next morning to find the earth did not end and are horrified to have been needlessly killed their children. Now, Robert Drivas plays Willie, Don Dubbins as Pickard, Jason Evers as Simmons, Tim Welding as John, and Christine Matchett as Anna. Now, because The Illustrated Man comprises three science fiction short stories from Bradbury's collection, Howard B. Kretzik wrote the screenplay that encompassed the three stories. Jack Smite directed the film, and Bradbury, however, was not consulted for the adaptation. Since the collection included 18 short stories, Smite chose 3 and used a carnival sideshow freak who appeared in the collection's prologue and epilogue as the film's primary narrative. As a tattooed man, the director cast Rod Steiger, whom he had known since the 1950s. Now, the movie was considered a critical and financial failure. Time wrote, responsibility for the failure of Illustrated Man must rest with director Smythe. He has committed every possible error of style and taste, including the inexcusable fault of letting Steiger chew up every piece of scenery in sight. But that's Rod Steiger. Now, Vincent Canby of New York Times wrote, Kretzik's screenplay is unsharp, out of focus, working into and out of the hallucinations with great awkwardness. Canby found the film to have moments of eerie beauty, but believed that the director was limited by the screenplay. The critic said everything remains Photius-like and underdeveloped, although shrouded in misty pretensions of grandeur. Roger Ebert of Chicago Sun-Times wrote, Smythe's confused, wandering film never does quite come to terms with what it wants to be. Ebert Noah pointed out the film's weaknesses to be acting and character, but did not find them to be fatal. He believed that the film's major flaw was inadequate attention to the audience's expectations, distracting it with logic and lack of logic in the film's three stories. He concluded, and so the film finally doesn't work for the same reason that comic westerns usually fail, because it's risky to fool around with a genre unless you know what you're doing. Ray Bradbury said, Rod was very good in it, but it wasn't a good film. The script was terrible. Now, according to John Stanley, a major disappointment for producer Kretzik's script fails to capture the poetry and imagination of Bradbury's famous collection. Smythe is too conventional a director to give this a technique it screams out for. Now, the film was nominated for the Best Dramatic Presentation at the Science Fiction Awards, the Hugos, but did not win. Now, The Illustrated Man was only released on DVD in 2006. A retrospective review of the film wrote that the counterculture of the 1960s was evident in the film, and that its depiction of the future did not age well. Now, the 2009 Quentin Tarantino film, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, features a radio ad of The Illustrated Man, as well as appearing on the film's soundtrack. Like, what was the target audience? Was it older hippies? Was it older college students? Was it pure Ray Bradbury fans? Can you tell me what the target audience was? Because nobody in Canada went to see this movie. It played to empty theaters throughout the 10 provinces and the 2 territories. Now, in August 2007, Zack Snyder signed on to direct a remake of it with Watchmen co-screenwriter Alex C. as a screenwriter. In 2009, C said the script was in 6 parts and included the stories The Illustrated Man developed and a concrete mixer. Now, this was a very, very interesting time for movies, and basically, if it was released, let's say in like a 1967, but the idea, seeing Rod Steiger completely naked, covered in tattoos, now, according to the Guinness Book of World Records, this film does hold a record for longest time applying makeup each day at 20 hours. Now, the full-size crashed spaceship used in the second segment, the long range, is actually the spaceship used in the Planet of the Apes in the 68, 70, and 71 sequels. Now, when Jack Smythe contracted about Ray Bradbury about buying the rights, Bradbury informed him he would sell it if Smythe hired Burt Lancaster, Paul Newman, and Rod Steiger for the lead role. Now, Kirk Douglas was keen to play the lead. He had also previously owned the rights to Bradbury's Something Wicked This Way Comes and the Martian Chronicles were made into a Disney movie and a TV series. Now, makeup director Gordon Bow and a team of 8 assistants spent 10 hours applying the temporary tattoos to Steiger's torso, plus another full day tattooing his hands, legs, and lower body. Now, last I checked, ladies and gentlemen, it should have been nominated for best best makeup, but there wasn't a category at the time. It would obviously have been nominated. Box office, I don't know exactly how much it made or how much it cost. So it's whether you feel the movie would do better in streaming or whatever. But I rarely see this shown on TV. The last time I saw it, I think, was maybe on the French channels in Canada. Not sure if it was TVI or CBC. Now, there's a longer running time of the movie, but 143 minutes. It's too long and too short, as we say. Now, there's no indication of the box office numbers. I would figure it probably cost to get Steiger right off in the heat of the night, probably in the 10 million, 5 to 10 million, not million, 500,000 to $1 million range. I wouldn't be surprised there, because that was the going rate back then for Oscar winners. So, ladies and gentlemen, I've only seen the movie once, and I can say I can't review the movie because it was too confused as to why he chose Rod Steiger, not the greatest physical presence, to be naked with all that tattoos. Kind of freaky. So if you're a Ray Bradbury fan, for kitsch or for completists, this is for you. But how many Ray Bradbury fans we got left in 2024? Because, no offense, most of you fans are now dead, and Bradbury's dead. So, I mean, it is what it is. And Rod Steiger, there's not too much of a cult of a Rod Steiger out there. So, but what a weird time for Rod Steiger, too, to come off the pawnbroker and in the heat of the night, Illustrated Man. Like I said, he was a top 10 draw back then. And he methods this like crazy. Even the scenes are translated in French. Tremendous. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you like what you're doing here with our movie podcast, let us know with a like, comment, subscribe, or share.